Before the music fades in, before a single frame hits the screen, you must make your viewers feel something, an itch they have to scratch. So imagine this, a pair of police officers, exhausted, sunburned, and one wrong turn away from collapsing under the brutal Arizona sun. Stumble upon a steel hatch buried beneath shifting sand dunes. It's not listed on any map. It's welded shut from the outside, and behind it, faintly, something is moving. If you want to know what they found down there, what the world was never meant to see, stay with this story. And before we begin, hit that like, share, and subscribe button, because what you're about to hear is one of the most unnerving discoveries in recent American history, and almost no one knows the full truth. Now let's begin. The story starts on July 19, 2017. The heat that summer was brutal. Temperatures in parts of the Sonoran Desert reached 119 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to blister skin in seconds. Two deputies from Pima County, Officer Ray Calder and Sergeant Melissa Hart, were responding to what they thought was just another desert welfare check. A hiker had reported seeing flashes of light underground. Strange, rhythmic bursts, almost like someone signaling. No one expected what came next. The call came in at 6:42 a.m., a time when the desert still held its breath before the heat began its daily assault. Calder and Hart drove out miles beyond the usual trails, crossing terrain so barren even cactus hesitated to grow. The sand here swallowed footprints in minutes. The wind sculpted ridges like waves frozen in time. After a 40-minute drive and a mile on foot, they saw it. A piece of corrugated metal jutting out from a mound of sand, almost like a trapdoor, but older. Industrial, military, looks like Cold War stuff, Calder muttered, or what's left of it. Hart circled around, feeling the metal with the back of her glove. It was warm, unnaturally warm, despite being in full shade. This shouldn't be here, she said. There were no maintenance markers, no faded signs, no serial plates. Nothing identifying its purpose or owner. Just sand, rust, and a faint thumping from below. Calder pressed his ear to the metal. That's when he heard it. Not random, intentional, human. They immediately called for backup. By the time additional units arrived, the tapping had stopped. The desert was silent again, eerily so. A portable hydraulic cutter was brought in to pry the hatch open. Took nearly an hour. When the metal finally gave way, a wave of hot, stagnant air, smelling of copper and mildew, poured out of the darkness. And then a voice echoed up from below. A soft, shaky whisper, "Please, don't close it." Calder and Hart descended first. Flashlights sliced through layers of dust and cobwebs, revealing a narrow metal staircase spiraling downward. Old wiring dangled from the ceiling like veins. The steps groaned with every move, threatening to collapse under the first real weight they'd held in decades. At the bottom was a corridor, surprisingly wide. Panels on the wall flickered faintly, powered by an ancient generator still running somewhere deeper in the complex. The air hummed with low, mechanical vibrations. Hart raised her radio. "Dispatch, be advised, we have an occupied underground structure. Possible bunker. Proceeding with caution." But dispatch didn't answer. 3 floors underground. Communication doesn't work. They were on their own. As they moved deeper, graffiti appeared on the walls, symbols scratched into metal. Circles, spirals, shapes resembling eyes. At first glance, they looked like the work of someone trapped, bored, maybe mentally unstable. Then they turned a corner and froze. A man stood at the end of the hallway. He looked malnourished, mid-40s, barefoot, wearing what appeared to be a uniform, but not any police uniform they recognized. His badge was carved from wood, burned with an emblem resembling a sun split down the middle. He held his hands up, trembling. Are you the replacements?" he asked. Hart blinked. "Sir, we're law enforcement." "Who are you?" The man swallowed. "I'm Lieutenant Dane Rourke of the Ritual Police." Neither officer responded, because that title didn't exist. Rourke seemed to understand their confusion. His eyes darted to the shadows as if afraid someone, or something, might be listening. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "You shouldn't have opened the door." He turned, motioning for them to follow. Against their instincts, they did. The bunker stretched far beyond what they'd expected. Rooms branched off like honeycomb cells, some filled with dusty crates, others with outdated surveillance equipment. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. It grew colder, the metallic scent thickened, almost sweet. Rourke led them into a chamber lit by a single flickering bulb. What they saw didn't feel real. The place was set up like an old command center. Maps, logbooks, radio consoles, but every surface was covered in those same symbols they saw outside. On a table in the center lay a series of leather-bound journals, edges cracked with age. Rourke gestured to the books. This is what we were trained to document. This is why the bunker exists. Hart approached cautiously. Lieutenant Rourke, what exactly were you policing? He lowered his head. Rituals. Calder exchanged a glance with Hart. You mean like criminal rituals? Cult stuff? No, Rourke said softly. Not criminal. Not human. The room swallowed his words. Calder forced a laugh. Come on. Are you telling us this is some paranormal investigation outpost? Because... Rourke slammed his hand down on the table. This is not a joke. Do you think I scribbled on the walls for fun? Do you think I stayed down here 27 years because I wanted to? Hart stepped forward. 27. Did you say 27? Rourke nodded. We were the third unit assigned. It was a federal program, off record, funded under experimental psychological research. That's what they told us. But it wasn't research. It was containment. He reached for one of the journals and flipped it open. Inside were sketches, horrifying ones. Shadowy figures with elongated limbs. Spirals emerging from the eyes. Strange ritual circles etched into the desert ground. The drawings were frantic, messy, as if made by someone fighting sleep for days. Rourke pointed to one sketch, a handprint with 6 fingers. We called them the Sand Choir. Calder took a step back. This is insane. Is it? Rourke asked. Have you ever heard the desert sing? Late at night? When the air vibrates but the wind is still. Hart felt a chill crawl up her spine, because she had heard something like that once. A low, droning sound in the early morning, almost like voices. Rourke closed the journal. Our task was to monitor, document, and if necessary, intervene. With rituals, he said. Counter-rituals. Calder shook his head. You're telling us your job was fighting supernatural monsters with chance? Rourke didn't answer. Instead, he walked to another door at the far end of the room. It was locked with 3 heavy bolts, all rusted shut. He stared at the metal as if it hid something alive. That, he whispered, is why I stayed. Hart approached carefully. What's behind this door? Rourke's voice cracked. Don't open it. Calder, despite every instinct screaming at him, asked, Why not? Because I locked him in there. The silence that followed was suffocating. Him who? Hart asked. Rourke clenched his fists. Commander Hale. He was our leader. Brilliant. Brave. A man who understood things the rest of us couldn't. But the rituals, they change you. They open doors in your mind that you cannot close. Hart leaned in. What happened to him? Rourke exhaled, trembling. He started hearing them. The choir. Started saying they were calling his name. Started drawing these symbols on his skin. He lifted his sleeve. Faded scars. Spiral patterns carved into flesh. He made us join him. Said it was the only way to protect the surface. The only way to stop them from crossing over. He pressed his forehead to the cold metal door. I think he became one of them. Calder grabbed Rourke by the shoulders. Lieutenant, we need you to focus. Is Commander Hale alive behind this door? Rourke looked him dead in the eyes. He is not alive, but he is not dead either. Before Calder could respond, something boomed against the door. Metal rattled. Dust rained from the ceiling. The sound was deep, inhumanly deep. Rourke stumbled back. He woke up. You brought noise. You opened the hatch. He knows. Calder drew his weapon. Hart tried her radio again, nothing but static. Then the second bang hit. Harder. A dent appeared in the steel, and then another. Whatever was inside was hitting the door in rhythmic intervals. The officers backed away. The banging grew violent. Metal screeched. Bolts groaned. One of them snapped and shot across the room like a bullet, embedding itself in the opposite wall. The second bolt snapped. Calder grabbed Rourke's arm. The third bolt was bending, metal fibers splitting like bone. They ran. Down the corridor. Up the stairs. Through the narrow opening where sunlight blazed through the hatch. Behind them, echoing through the bunker, came a sound that did not resemble human speech. A layered chorus. 100 whispering voices merging into one agonized scream. Rourke collapsed halfway up the staircase, gripping his head. The choir! They're calling! Hart hauled him up. The three of them burst out into the desert light just as something slammed into the bunker hatch from below, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Calder and Hart dropped the metal plate back into position. There were no welding tools, no way to reseal it. They piled rocks, sandbags, anything they could find to weigh it down. And then, silence. Rourke lay on the ground, hyperventilating. They can't come out during the day. Rourke looked toward the horizon, where heat made the desert waver like a mirage. They're old, he said. Older than the tribes. Older than the land as we know it. They sleep beneath the dunes. They feed on memory, on sound. Hail was their bridge. Calder wiped sweat from his brow. What do we do now? Rourke stared at the hatch. You bury it, he said. You bury it and hope the desert keeps its silence. They radioed for assistance once they were far enough from the bunker to get a signal again. Federal authorities arrived within hours. Black SUVs. Men in plain clothing, no insignias. The officers were questioned for nearly 12 hours. Rourke was taken away on a stretcher, whispering to himself the whole time. The next morning, the hatch was gone. Not covered, gone. The sand had been leveled, smoothed perfectly as if nothing had ever been there. No tracks, no debris, no sign that the ground had been disturbed at all. When Hart asked where the bunker had been relocated, the federal team simply told her the site was not of her concern. A week later, she tried to follow up on Rourke. There was no record of his existence in any federal or military database. No birth certificate, no service record, no missing persons report, nothing. Calder requested the logbooks from the incident. They had been misplaced. But the most unsettling part came months later. In December, during an unseasonably cold night, Hart sat on her porch outside Tucson, wrapped in a blanket. She stood, walked out toward the yard, listening. The sound came again. Not from the sky, not from the wind, from underground. She backed away slowly, heart pounding. The sound faded. She never reported it, but she knew what it meant. The desert remembers. The choir remembers. And somewhere beneath the sand, something is still calling. This world holds secrets, buried deeper than any bunker, hidden from every map, erased from every record. Some discoveries change how we understand history. Others change how we understand fear. What happened in that desert was never meant to see the light of day. But now you know the story. And once the story is told, it can't be buried again. If you want more mysteries like this, stories the world isn't ready to face, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, because the next story we uncover might be even darker.